Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast. My name is Sean, and joining us for our mid-season rankings is Coops, Evening Coops.
Hello, how's it going?
It's good. I'm looking forward to this one. And James, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate. How about yourself?
Good, good. Enjoying the time off, missing Formula One a little bit, but it's back before we know it. We're only a week and a half away from cars on track again, which is mad. We are Everything F1, and we are about to get into our mid-season rankings. But before we do that, you can find us on all socials, even during the quiet times. When F1 is in lockdown, you'll find us active on all socials: Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads at Join EF1 or TikTok at EF1 Official. You can also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles, including this ranking system in much more detail for each and every driver and team. I have a full article going up there in the next 24 hours. So check that out as well and let us know your own thoughts. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're not watching us on YouTube, go over, hit subscribe, join us there. Everything F1, all one word, and you hit subscribe, you go into the draw for a Lego Speed Champion set as soon as we hit 500 subscribers. We're not too far away from it now. And if you are on YouTube, give us your thoughts, give us your comments, let us know your ranking for this season. I'd also like to thank, of course, the raceworks.com for all F1 and motorsport merch needs. Check out the raceworks.com and use code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide, which is exactly what I did about a week ago to get this lovely Carlos Sainz. It's a bit of a classic, but it's a Carlos Sainz Ferrari jersey. Didn't have any Ferrari jerseys, and I'm going to Monza in 2 weeks, and I don't think I'd be allowed into Italy if I didn't have any Ferrari merch with me. So got it on an absolute steal. Use that discount. Free shipping to me in Ireland here, and it was with me in just a couple of days, which was fantastic. So, theraceworks.com, code EF1 at checkout for 10% off. Now, then, we'll do this in two parts. So, part number one, we are going to look at the constructors, the teams. So, we have ranked the teams from 10th to 1st. For this particular ranking, we asked all of the team members of the Everything F1 team, the wider team, all of our writers, our podcast contributors, our social media people, everybody involved, about 40 people involved. We asked them all to share their opinions and apply the F1 points system to their teams. So 25 points for first, 1 point for 10th. So we'll get straight into it. We'll go one by one to fire through it, otherwise we might be here forever. And then we'll have a little bit more of a discussion on the top three when we get there. So Coops, I'll start with you because if I do this one, I might rant forever. I'm just going to sit back and giggle at this one. In 10th place, the Everything F1 ranking has Alpine, which might not be any surprise whatsoever, who also currently sit 10th in the Constructors' Championship with 20 points, thanks entirely to Pierre Gasly. So, surprised that Alpine ranked last in our ranking?
No, 100% no. They've been in the news for all the wrong reasons, whether it be return of the Messiah, uh, or their team principal suddenly leaving and flying to Dubai, and the brother ending up in jail or accused of all sorts of dodgy dealings, and you know, just you kind of lose it. We know that when the kind of French teams come into Formula One, there's usually some sort of fun in there. There's usually something, whether they come in and then disappear. It's a bit like the hokey cokey when they come into Formula One and out and out. Uh, but they've really kind of shook it about a bit this time round. Uh, it's just bizarre, And as Sean, the biggest thing that gets you is a manufacturer deciding not to make their own power unit. I mean, that's just laughable.
Completely.
And it all just points to the fact that they're looking to get rid of the team and sell it in some way. That has to be what they're doing. I can't see any other reason. They're not that incompetent. But then when you look at the list of people that have left, and you've got Alan Prost leaving at one point. Was it Rossi? I think's now
Mm.
been shipped off to a hut in the Antarctica, I think, in special projects they called it. It's just bizarre. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
it certainly is. They have only had 3 points 4 points finishes this year, all four of which have come for Pierre Gasly's best result of sixth a few weeks back in Britain. They're last on 20 points, like I said. And the best result for the second car, no matter who was driving it, was 13th, which was managed three times. Once by Jack Doohan in China, twice by Franco Colapinto in Monaco and Canada. And other than that, they've been rubbish and languishing at the back, and I don't see that changing in the second half of the season. Do you?
Nope, definitely not. I
No,
mean, even the way that they've treated the drivers. I mean, even Red Bull's looking at that, going, "Jesus, what are you doing?" I mean, that's saying something. Um,
at least Franco
you know,
Colapinto hasn't been dropped yet.
it's because I don't think that anybody else wants to touch the team.
No, I reckon not. Even Mick Schumacher, who'd love a chance back in Formula One, is like, yeah, not with that though. I'm better off without them.
Yeah, I think Bottas is a rumored to they did apparently have make contact to see if it would be available and politely or however he's done it. Bottas is kind of went, yeah, I'm interested in Cadillac, but not Alpine.
Yeah,
You know,
which you can't really blame him for. So Alpine sit last in our rankings as they sit last in the constructors' standings, and we gave them an average score of 1 point, which means it was unanimous from absolutely everybody that they were last. Unsurprising. On to ninth on our list, which is Haas, who are also conveniently also currently ninth in the Constructors' Championships on 35 points. I promise from here it diverts pretty substantially until we get to number one, and spoiler alert, who might that be? But James Haas, they're currently, as I said, ninth on 35 points, so there's a bit of a gap. They're sort of in that sort of no man's landy sort of space. They're on 35 points. They're obviously pretty clear of Alpine by 25 points, or sorry, by 15 points, but they're 10 behind RB, which I don't think is insurmountable. And I don't think Haas have had a bad year. They've just had an unsubstantial year, an unimpressive year. But you've got Ollie Behrman having that dreadfully unfortunate run of fourth 11 positions in a row. Any one of them would have made a big difference to their year so far. So, thoughts on Haas? Is it fair to have them that low down? Can they pick it up a little bit towards the end of the season?
I think it is fair because I think the one word I describe Hass's season is inconsistent. I think there's been wild variations between the performance of the car, not through, for example, you take a Sauber who've sort of progressively got better. You could call that inconsistent, but actually they've just got better. But like Hass has been like then a double points finish in China, and then we're nowhere in the next race in Imola, or wherever it was. Like they've just been up and down, up and down. So I think that that's fair enough. But I do think, between the midfield, we'll call them midfield teams, excluding Alpine, it is sort of you can throw a stone between any of them. It really just about personal preference. But I think that for Haas to do ninth, I think it's fair enough because I think they have been the most inconsistent. Just the variations between tracks has been pretty wild. They've had very good races, but then they've also had terrible races. They've both been knocked out in Q1 and been out. Never see them on a Sunday. So I think it's fair enough that they're at ninth just because of that inconsistency.
Yep, I think that's the fairest way to put it. I don't actually think this has been a bad season for Haas. I think
Mm.
ninth in both standings in our ranking and in the constructors doesn't really tell the story of their season. I think Ollie Behrman's had a decent year, which we'll get into when we get onto the driver rankings. Esteban Ocon is sitting 10th in the drivers' championship, so he's having a very good season. It's just sort of happening that that's sort of where they are. The midfield is very, very competitive. But yeah, so they are sitting ninth, and they have 35 points in the Constructors' Championship, and we gave them a combined 3 points, which means it was pretty unanimous that they were kind of down towards the end as well. Some people ranked them a bit higher, some a bit lower, but on average, it was ninth was the position that they were getting into, which is a bit of a shame. They finished on, like I said, an average of 3 points. Moving on then to Aston Martin, who we have in eighth position. They're currently sat sixth in the constructors with 52 points. We gave them an average of 5.6 points out of, I suppose, 25. Coops, Aston, lower on our ranking than they are in the constructors championship. Does that tell a story? Does Lance Stroll carrying them on their back? Fernando Alonso got unlucky. What have you sort of made of Aston, and is eighth fair on our combined ranking?
I think it's fair because Aston Martin with the amount of investment with the Fernando Alonso, Adrian Newey effect, I think they've kind of been very underwhelming. Now, Adrian Newey can't really do much with this car. He can maybe help point them in the right direction for upgrades and things. And they have shown glimmers of decent results, but I think everyone kind of seems to be in the same boat that Lance Stroll doesn't seem that fussed about being in Formula One. He doesn't, and how do you tell your dad who's just bought a Formula One team that you don't want to do it anymore? I mean, he has other investors, and maybe the other stakeholders might push that on him anyway. But I think the fact that they're eighth is just, I think people are just kind of underwhelmed. They're either crashing last or largely anonymous throughout most of the first part of the season, with maybe one race where they're relatively decent. Was it Belgium or was there another one where they were up in the top 10 and they were relatively consistent?
Hungary.
Hungary
Hungary
last
did
time
very
out, the
well.
Hungary,
two of them had a great
Yeah.
race,
yeah.
but it came
So
out of nowhere because in Belgium they were both crap.
yeah, and then they were up at the top 10 consistently out the weekend. So yeah, I think it's just people are. I think it's a disappointment that they expected them to be a bit better and they're just not. And then obviously the Lance Stroll effect. I don't think there's many people that particularly like him as a driver. I mean, he's all right, but if he gives that air of doesn't really want to be doing it, he'll move aside. You've got Drugovic sitting there as your test driver, who's probably a pretty decent driver who'll relish the prospect and really be excited by it,
With
along with other drivers.
with 10 races left, what does success look like for Aston Martin now towards the end of the season? They're sixth. They're on 52 points. They're 1 point ahead of Sauber. They're only seven ahead of RB, who are in eighth, and they're 18 behind Williams. Now, they've caught up to Williams significantly, especially after Hungary, and Williams have been floundering a bit. But I'd sooner expect Williams to kind of at least stagnate that a little bit than to see Aston pick that off. I could sooner see Aston getting caught by Sauber and RB. So are they just sort of ticking through to the Adrian Newey era to start next year?
Yeah, I mean, success would be that they don't get caught by just about everybody below them.
Which is entirely
Williams,
possible.
yep, Williams and Aston are in that situation where now I know Williams switched off from upgrades very early on. We're talking what, a couple of races in.
Hmm.
Uh, Mercedes have said they're not doing any more upgrades out for the second half of the season, but they've got a decent enough car to see them through. And most of the other teams will probably be a race or two close to each other, whether it be the next race or whatever. But Williams and Aston don't have a particularly good car at the minute, and they must have. So I can't remember if they've announced that they'll stop doing upgrades, but uh, they, you kind of just have to hope that other teams start switching off and it kind of balances out because, as we've seen with Williams, they've not had a great last few races.
Hmm.
Doesn't seem to be getting much better, and that's partly because not because they've got worse, it's because other teams have upgraded and got a wee bit better. And
Yeah, I mean you've
that's
got Sauber and RB kicking at both their heels, and we'll get on to not to spoil it too much, but RB and particularly Sauber are substantially higher up this list than Aston Martin are. So they might flounder. Oh, would they get cut for ninth? Maybe if Haas have a
Yeah.
really good run in the second half of the season. I think they're pretty safe from finishing 10th. Let's be fair. But yeah, there's two positions that they could lose next weekend in Zandvoort for all we know. It's going to be an interesting second half of the season. But again, to your point, I'm pretty sure they've switched off. And the next team that have also switched off, as you said, is Williams, who we have ranked seventh. They're currently fifth in the Constructors' Championship on 70 points. We gave them an average of 7.6 points. James, it's kind of been a tale of two halves of the first half of the season for Williams, very much so. And I think I don't fully buy that it's just that they stopped developing. I think they've just made setup mistakes. The drivers have been inconsistent, particularly Carlos Sainz. It's been a poor couple of months now for Williams in the past few races.
Yeah, I definitely think the switching off the development could have had an effect, but I agree. I don't think it's the full effect. So you look at, for example, I think Aston Martin, if they had great race in Hungary, they had a bad race in Spas. You got to think they don't quite know what their upgrades have done. So say they get to Zandvoort and actually the upgrades have worked there, but then they go to Monza and they don't. So they could be a bit inconsistent there. It feels like the Williams just hasn't really worked in many places. Obviously, they got double points in Monaco, didn't they? But that race is hard to explain away with setup because you just have to block each other. But I think that there's definitely been some issues. Obviously, Carlos Sainz just has generally underperformed the seasons when Alex Albon hasn't been quite on it. They haven't really been getting many points, but it's been an interesting one that they have slowly slipped back. I think the upgrades they brought to the season just the upgrades they had brought haven't really worked in the last couple of months. I think switching off development is always a little bit of a faux pas 'cause I think that all teams bring tiny little bits adjustments things like that. It depends on what you mean by they bring in completely new parts and all that jazz. So I think Alpine are gonna. I think Williams could be a little bit tense actually
Mm.
because I don't think they're. We look back to the first half of the season when they were getting. I remember I
Well,
wrote in one of the race reviews they're going to get double points pretty much every weekend, and that pretty much stopped immediately.
between
Um,
Austria and Monaco, they only didn't score four times. With
mm,
both cars, it was retirement for one car in Australia, a 14th in Japan, and 12th in retirement in Bahrain, a double non-point score. Other than that, they scored points every single round. But then from Spain to Hungary, they only
yeah,
had three point scoring finishes, and all three of
mm,
them were for Alex Albon.
yeah. And I
So
think that obviously they've
big
had they've had
swing.
and they've had reliability issues that I think if you look back at the teams, I think of Haas have had a few reliability issues. But Williams have a big one. They had that double DNF in Austria when Carlos Sainz didn't even start. So they've had
Mm.
those issues that come through. And I think they could be looking over their shoulder a little bit. I know earlier in the season we said that they're locked into that fifth place untouchable, but teams like Racing Bulls and Sauber now who are starting to score more consistently, 10 races to go, they just need to average 1.8 a race. That's just a ninth or so, for the drivers to get to for Aston Martin to overtake them. So I think Williams could. I think they had a great first half. It slipped back. It's going to be tough for them to mainly hold on to that. I think it's going to be really tight in that midfield battle. But I also think we've got to give them kudos from where they have been the last couple of years. They made that big step, and they're now fifth in the driving seat to take fifth in the constructors. So I think that you've got to give them credit. So I think sixth place is probably. I think that's about right. I know we did the rankings, so we would think that. Sorry, seventh place. I think other teams have had more spectacular results, which I think may have tipped the edge tipped the edge to them. So it could be a tough second half, but I think they've from where Williams have been. I think this has been a successful stepping stone for them, building on hopefully what they'll do in the future. So I think seventh is probably about right.
Yeah, I agree. And with that exactly in mind, we have RB ranked in sixth on exactly the same average score of
Oof.
7.6. Now, and I calculated this out, it's 7.6666666666667 for both of them. So completely identical score.
Do you go
Um,
alphabetical?
no, I did it in terms I kind of put my own spin on this. I think all things considered, RB have been better with what they've had to deal with this year, and they've achieved a little bit more than Williams, what they were expecting with bringing Carlos Sainz in. James Vowles' big talk. They had a good start to the season. They've fallen off. I think expectation versus performance. When you have them identical like that, I think it's relatively fair when you consider it in that way to put RB ahead of them. If you want to argue with me, that's fine. Doesn't really make any major difference. If anyone wants to argue with me in the comments, that's perfectly fine. Makes no real odds of difference to the ranking in general. But in sixth place, we do have RB. They're currently eighth on 45 points, as we've mentioned. We put them higher on kind of expected results versus actual results. And Coops, especially with the turbulent start that they had to the season as well, with the enforced driver change that was nothing to do with them, and they absolutely did not want it to happen. It's because Christian Horner and Red Bull had a bit of a panic attack about Liam Lawson and thought, oh, he can't drive our second car that's undrivable, so let's let Yuki try drive the car that's undrivable. And RB kind of got shanked with it, and then Horner gets let go, and RB lose their team principal. So they've had a turbulent year at the best of it, and they're still having a pretty good run of form, particularly. Isaac Hadjar, who we'll talk about a bit later. But what do you make of RB's season so far?
It's been steady. And that's kind of what you want from RB. They've got a car that's just overall a decent car to drive.
Mm.
There's no any kind of weird kind of setups or, Red Bull's kind of drives at the front and the really loose rear end or whatever it is. So, I think people there's a bit of sympathy for racing bulls because, they've got a really rubbish name considering what they used to be called. And then they've got to deal with politics. They kind of, if someone comes in with some money and takes that team over and just treats them as an independent team, I think the world would be a lot better. Uh, but what they're doing with that car, up until recently, where they had the right man helming it, not to say that Alan Permane isn't going to be the right man. Their previous team principal, who, I mean, he came from Ferrari, he had a bit like the Andrea Stella situation, but just very well respected within the paddock in general and just knows his stuff.
Went about
I
his
mean,
life quietly, then all of a sudden, oh, that guy is team principal, and he's been in
yeah,
Formula One forever. Oh, cool, didn't know about him.
oh
Done his job well.
yeah. Like, quick Wikipedia search. Who's
Yeah,
he?
who's he?
Okay,
Oh,
so he started in 1997. Right.
yeah,
Okay.
he's been around longer than most modern Formula One fans have been alive, and nobody had heard
Yeah.
of him until a couple of years ago.
And, I mean, and yeah, he's good. I mean, Andrea Stella was very similar, like until he
Mm.
got the McLaren thing. He done at Ferrari, he was done at McLaren, very well respected. Nobody really knew him. Then I think it was that morning where everybody moved around and folk were changing left and right, and we were struggling to keep up to it on our socials at the time. So yeah, they're just and they've got Liam Lawson's found his feet after the kind of start he had and hitting people and the issues at Red Bull. I mean, nothing worse than being picked because you were the least worst out of all the choices,
Mm.
which is literally what they did. Let's face it. And I think Isaac Hadjar, sorry, is going to be pretty much a star for the future. I think he's going to be in Formula One for quite a number of years. That's what we'd like, but there's people being let go and dropped off the grid for no fault of their own. So let's hope that doesn't happen to him. But he definitely has the potential to be around for a good decade if he gets his decisions right and things fall for him.
Mhm. Yep. Yep, agreed. So there we go. That's RB in sixth. Following them in fifth, or ahead of them in fifth, I should say, is Red Bull. Um, to be honest, I'm actually a little bit surprised they weren't lower. I think the max effect has kept them in contention, because it's becoming very, very obvious now that that car really is not champion worthy. It's definitely not race winner worthy. And yet here's Max Verstappen. He's won two races. He's been on the podium a lot. He's kind of up until the last couple of races been in fair contention for, I think, kind of up to Canada, but after Canada, kind of Austria onwards is kind of an okay, maybe not. But he was there in the fight with the McLarens, and I think it's the max factor that's kept Red Bull relatively high on this ranking. They're currently fourth in the championship on 194 points, so they've fallen off substantially from McLaren, who are on 559, which is insane. But we have given them an average ranking of 8.3 points. So, James, are you surprised to see them this low down? Did you expect them to be maybe a little bit higher? And is this second seat syndrome going to cost them even more in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think I expected them to be there. I must admit, I put them fourth when I sent my rankings through, and actually, in the days afterwards, when I was thinking about it, as you do, I actually thought I put them too high. Like sort of reviewing it back in your head, you pick them, and I think you're 100% right. It is the max effect because if you take Max Verstappen out of it, which I know is silly to do because he does drive for the team, so it's hard to do that. But like they would be absolutely nowhere. They've got rid of. Obviously, the team principal's left, who's the only team principal they've ever had. I think Lauren Mackey's could be fantastic, but still a bit of a mid-season team principal switch. You do not see that very often, unless you're Alpine, of course. But we've spoken about that enough.
Well, it's interesting.
And
I put them second last. I put them ninth
fair.
on my ranking, and again, in a similar
Mm.
way to that kind of RB opinion, it's results versus expectation. And this year has been, with the exception of Max's two well, five if you count his podiums. His two moments of unexpected brilliance in Japan and Imola with that pass on the first corner, which was phenomenal. They have been atrocious this year,
Hmm. Yeah,
all
and I
things
think if you
considered.
if you look at, if you have one team driver at the front and one driver at the back, there's clearly something not quite right. And Lawson, Sonoda have not, and even Perez back in the last year, like his drop off was ridiculous. Like these drivers do not forget how to drive cars
Mm,
overnight, and it seemed at times it seemed that way. And I think there's obviously been a lot of upheaval. Jonathan Wheatley left last year, Christian Horner this year, Adrian Newey left. There's been a few, is it Rob Mansell? Marshall, sorry, he went to McLaren last year. Like this is a ticking time bomb that's just been happening. Now they're seeing the fruits of it, but they have been awful. I think you're right. They're probably more towards ninth as a team compared to fourth, for example.
mm.
I know. So fifth probably is a little bit high for them. I think they're probably all saying, like Martin Brundle used to say in the 2019, 2020, thank God for Max Verstappen because
Yeah.
he's saved them. I think obviously that they are what they fourth in the championship, quite a way off now. Ferrari and Mercedes, I want to say, but that just shows that it's basically all Max Verstappen's doing. And the Racing Bulls have scored more than the two Red Bull second drivers this year. So it has been an extremely bad year for them. And I think you're right. Actually, we've probably been quite kind to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope for their sake and for their sponsors' sakes and for their income's sake, it doesn't get much worse. I don't think they're going to go any further down than fourth.
No,
Williams would need a little bit of a miracle to catch them. They're 124 points behind, so okay, they're safe in fourth, but they're not catching back to Mercedes and Ferrari at this stage, are
no,
they? It's
no.
very, very unlikely unless Ferrari it up for the end of the season. Um, and with that in mind, let's move on to Ferrari, who we have ranked in fourth. They're obviously currently second in the Constructors' Championship on 260 points. We gave them an average score of 12.8. And Coops, I have to assume just in this one, it's again that kind of weight of expectation versus results to come. I mean, they lost the champion, they finished second in the championship by like 14 points last year. That car was as good as, if not better than the McLaren, and they decided to copy McLaren in the wrong way and do what McLaren did in 2013 and change a race winning, potentially dominant car and feck it up entirely. And they've been not anywhere near that. Your second is very much still on for them this season, but they are already 299 points behind 299 points behind McLaren, which is disgusting when they lost to them by 14 8 months ago. So
Yeah, and I think
Ferrari.
again there's a lot of frustration with Ferrari because of it's Ferrari. Like the team's been there since its inception, Formula One's inception, sorry. That the brand, the badge you're wearing, the shirt at the minute, that badge is just known. They don't advertise their cars because everyone knows what a Ferrari is, and they just flatter to deceive all the time. The end of last season, you're like, we were talking in the off season and as the season was building up that this could be really exciting. It could be McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and it'll switch back and forth and blah blah blah. I mean, who knew McLaren would be as dominant with their car?
Mm-mm.
We always thought everyone else would make a step up and be close to the McLaren. And Ferrari just have taken two steps back. It's always the same thing. Like they took a step forward, then it was the anticipation of Hamilton being in the team, and this could be a good opportunity for him to get a a new environment, and you know, really get his eighth championship, or at least compete for it. And I think the reflection, I personally, I ranked him fourth, and I don't, and that's got nothing to do with Lewis Hamilton. That's the sad fact of it all.
Mm.
And I think that again similar in a similar sort of vein to Aston Martin. Like people had so much expectation and are just utterly disappointed by it all. It's the same old thing. And the other thing that a lot of people are probably, maybe even the younger generation that are in Formula One now, from your Drive to Survive eras and thing, a lot of people like Charles Leclerc,
Mm.
and at the moment he's wasting his career at Ferrari
Imagine,
because
imagine Charles Leclerc in that McLaren.
Could you imagine?
He
Yeah,
he
like
would he would be champion in Monza. 1 million. He would be champion in Monza. He would win it that soon if he was in that McLaren this year. I mean,
I mean,
Piastri and Norris are very good, but they don't
It's a
hold a
big statement.
candle to Leclerc. It is a big
I think
statement.
That is a
I
very big
think it would
statement.
be a very very interesting championship between Piastri and Leclerc. I think Norris has just got a wee bit behind a couple of mistakes, but Piastri hasn't really made a mistake. And Leclerc and McLaren, if they're both in that, I don't think they really would make the mistakes that Norris would make. So it would be a very interesting dynamic. Uh, Personally, I don't think it'd be as soon as that, but I think Leclerc would probably pip it in the planet. And I think that's the disappointing thing. I think that's why people have been so harsh on Ferrari. And again, also, it's Ferrari. They're
Yeah.
treated harshly in every aspect. They are, as we all know, in Italy, they're front page news. No other team gets that anywhere.
The thing about
And
it
it,
is though, in the same way that like when you the likes of your Fernando Alonso when he left, obviously Michael Schumacher he left and came back to Mercedes. Even Carlos Sainz he's left. They still have they've become more than Ferrari drivers to the Tifosi. The Tifosi, not that they've necessarily followed them outside Ferrari, they still follow Ferrari, but they haven't become the enemy by moving to another team. They haven't become the enemy for retiring, coming back, or beating Ferrari in another team. They are once you're in and have been successful and have won your races and kind of done your due diligence in Ferrari, you're a Ferrari legend forever. Kimi Raikkonen left, still a Ferrari legend, still the last Ferrari champion, so of course he is. Um, which,
and that
sorry,
was
sorry.
2007.
Seven, yeah. Sorry, Ferrari fans. That was very
That's how
nearly two
bad this
decades
is.
ago. This is pretty bad.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
pretty
just,
bad.
it's not good
Um,
enough. It's
but
just not good enough.
here's hoping that whatever they sold Lewis Hamilton on for 2026, which I have to believe is why he went, is on the horizon. Fred Vasseur has signed a new long-term contract. I think that's a very positive story to come out of
Hmm.
Ferrari for this year. There were a couple of rumblings that they were going to axe him off. I think they've done absolutely the right thing by steadying the ship and letting him, with a little bit more security for the next few years, go, right, lads, enough. Calm down. I'm here, my place. New regs are coming in, my ship. Let's steer it in this direction. So I think that's a good thing. But we'll see how they get on in the second half of the season. Now then, let's get into our top three, and we'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. And the top third place, which is arguably the most interesting, is Sauber. We have
Hmm.
ranked Sauber third out of all 10 teams. With an average of 13 points. Now they're currently in seventh in the Constructors' Championship on 51 points, and we have ranked them third. Now, this, James, if I'm playing devil's advocate here, I think the Hulkenberg podium of it all has probably played a big factor in some of our teams' ranking in that. Rightly or wrongly, that Sauber, no matter how much better it's been since Spain, is not a podium car, but that was a brilliantly executed drive from Hulkenberg, strategy from the team, timings on the tires, execution of just the perfect race, as perfect as a race could be, apart from the fact that he qualified like 20th
Yeah,
um,
19th.
or
Yeah, yeah.
19th. So perfect race. I think there might have been a bit of bias in that, but Gabby Bortoletto's picking it up a bit. That car has gotten better, and the team just seem happy and confident, and you can start to feel a little bit of that Audiness starting to come through now. And third, though, I still think, all things considered, have we been a little bit generous, or do you think that they're exactly where they need to be? Again, expectation versus performance this season so far.
Yeah, well, I think the Hulkenberg result definitely has had an effect, but that is the drive of the season, I'd say so far. That is the most memorable drive of the season, despite obviously, the track conditions. It could be, say, is it a team or is it a driver thing? Looking over the radio, he made some right calls, they made some right calls, but that is the standout performance of the year. So that shouldn't be taken in. That should definitely be taken into account. But what I'd say is that you're completely right about expectation versus reality. Looking at the teams below Sauber, obviously Sauber
RB,
were
Haas,
had
Alpine.
they had all though I think the expectations were that they would be last. I think going into the season, I think they probably thought it would be them and Alpine. I think Alpine have been exactly what we thought they would be. And I think at the beginning of the season, Sauber were that team. I know Hulkenberg came, I think it was seventh or sixth in Australia, but of course
Seventh in Australia. Yeah, it's a good start to
seventh
the
Australia, of
season.
course, crazy race. Go again, veteran performance, and then Bortoleto was quiet at the beginning of the season. But what I think we love as fans is that they were last, they were basically second last, and they've just got better and better and better. You've seen the direction they're going in. They made the right they made the right driver decisions. Hulkenberg last year, getting him in as a veteran, but then also they made the right decision getting. It looks like they got made the right decision getting Bortoleto in. He's been consistent. They've had great competition between them. I think there's, like you said, there's a feel good factor around the team. And I think we've seen them get better and better and better, which you sort of want to see from the lower teams. You don't want to, like, everyone's sick of Alpine, like no one cares about Alpine. I think Aston Martin have been disappointing since 2020, the first five races of 2023. You expect Aston Martin, this big name, loads of money. I know they've been doing through development, but every time you're like, oh, I just don't really care about them. But Sauber have got this, and I think Sauber have always had this sort of plucky underdog privateer mentality that not the other team, not these big manufacturers have, because Peter Sauber started them in the 90s, and they've just been that privateering team. And I know they're going to come up. I know they're going to come Audi, which is obviously a constructor, a manufacturer. But I think they've always had that. I think back to like 2012 with Perez and Kobayashi, and
Mm. Good
then
times.
Perez nearly winning, Malaysia 2013 or 2012, whenever it was. You've always had this feel good factor to them. So I think people didn't want to see them be rubbish, but compared to what they have been in the last couple of years and compared to what they were at the beginning of the season, they've just got better and better and better. And I think in our rankings, looking at every team below them, I have enjoyed watching Sauber more than all those other teams. So I think third's perfect. I think we'll get to the other two. I don't want to spoil it, but we've only got two left. But I think you maybe expect those two to be there. At least maybe the second place could be third, for example. Sauber could be
Mm.
second, but I think Sauber done fantastically, and they've clearly made the right decisions with the car. Both drivers are fantastic. Everyone seems to like the drivers. Jonathan Wheatley's come in and seems to have seemingly done a really good job. So as a team as a whole and on the track, I think they deserve to be third.
Yep. Yep, I think that's a really, really good way of putting it. And you compare, obviously, like last season, they finished last with
Yeah,
4 points from 1 point scoring result, and it was a
yeah,
bit of a fluke for Guan Yu Zhou. Actually, no, it wasn't. Drove quite well for Guan Yu Zhou in Qatar, but Qatar is impossible to
yeah,
overtake. I was there. Everybody in all the grandstands all stood up for him and cheered for him. It was like the big field goal was the only thing to cheer about in the race, if I'm being perfectly blunt about it. And that was fantastic. It was a good feel good thing. They outscored last year in race one of this year with
yeah.
that seventh place
And
for
and
in
don't you find that Hulkenberg and Bortoleto is, no offense to
great
Bottas, but
pairing.
is such a much more exciting pairing than
Great
Zhou
pairing.
and Bottas, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm a big fan of Gabby Bortoleto. I've said that a fair few times on the
Mm,
podcast now. I watched his Formula 2 season last year with big interest and Formula 3 the year before. It's not often you get the rookie F3 champion become a rookie F2 champion. But this guy here did it. If you're looking at us on YouTube,
yeah.
this guy who might become Formula 1 champion this year did it.
The
So,
other the other two aren't too
Bortoleto's
bad either,
no,
you
they're
know?
certainly not. So
Yeah.
he's in very good company with his results. Coops, anything extra to add on Sauber there before we move on?
They're building some good foundation for Audi next season, and I think that was that. I think that's the excitement as well.
Mm.
Everyone likes Hulkenberg for some reason. I wasn't overly impressed when he came back because I kind of wanted younger people in.
Neither
But
was I. I completely agree. Neither was I.
yeah, but he's got his podium. He's got that record off the bat. We Nobody wants that kind of record, and it was nice to see. And yeah, they're just quietly getting on about their business. And the more positive things we can say about Gabriel Bortoleto, the better. He's
Yep.
just he's a find, and
And as we said a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I would be shocked if Zach Brown let him go without some sort of a buyback clause.
oh, there'll be something. I mean, that man's a
And
car salesman. He knows what he's
yes, he
doing.
is. And if the rumors on young Mr. Irishman in Formula 2 are to be believed for next year, Zach Brown might have secured his post Norris and Piastri future already with Bortoleto and potentially Alex Dunn. We'll see how that plans out. Fingers crossed. Moving on then to second place, potentially no surprise after what we've got to so far, and assuming who number one are, is Mercedes. We ranked them second with an average of 15.5 points, which is very good. Most people rank them second or third in their rankings. And they are currently third in the championship, 236 points. So they are behind Ferrari, but they have the much more impressive high this year of they've won a race. Obviously, Canada, they've dominated the race. Pole and fastest lap for George Russell in Canada was a great result. He's having a very, very good season. Kimi Antonelli had a very bright start. Obviously, they gave him it was like 10,000 miles or something like that in the 10,000 kilometers in the test car beforehand. They gave him a proper preseason to make sure he's ready. He's had a bit of a struggle since Imola, really, unfortunately, his home race, but he did get the podium in Canada. He's been very unlucky with reliability. Those Mercedes engines seem to not work in anything that's not orange this year. But overall, third in the championship, second in our ranking. Coops, what have you made of Mercedes this year?
They do,
Oof.
they've just done exactly what they needed to do, and George has stepped up. There
Mm.
was a worry, like, why did Hamilton leave? Is there something going on? What's the issue? And it was great. The first part of the season was just McLaren, McLaren. How did he get third? It was brilliant. No, that was all it was for.
Yeah, he kept spawning onto the podium and into the top five.
Yeah, it was like something from like the Fortnite game. When I walk in and see my son playing it, and there they are in the lobby, and then somebody spawns in, and it's always just George Russell. They're like, oh, all right, here he is. Antonelli's had a great first part of the season, and we thought, yep, he's fine. The second part of the first part wasn't as good, and we're a wee bit concerned about where it's going to go. Uh, I think the break came at the right time for Antonelli, for Kimi, just to give him that time. He should be off social media and just being a 17, 18-year-old kid and playing PlayStation and enjoying himself, just not thinking about Formula One. Have it in the calendar, not even on your phone at the day you need to report back so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, they've been really solid. And I mean, let's not forget, Mercedes really did screw up this rule set. They got it
Mm.
wrong completely. And then they committed to something that was wrong because of a fluky kind of win. If they'd never won that with Russell in Brazil, they would never have stuck with the philosophy of that weird floor back end thing that they tried. And they've managed to turn it around. And I think the biggest thing for Mercedes is if they got it right at the start, I think they would have been the challenger for McLaren because they would have just kept going and they would have been up there. And where they're at is probably the second best team.
Mm.
It's because of the false dawns and the false starts earlier on in this rule set. So yeah, and also being at Belgium and then buying their merch, got a bit of a soft spot for them. Although the best merch is Ferrari. Yep.
Oh,
Not that t-shirt though.
yeah, I
See
know,
that
I
the one.
know, I know. I bought one for herself for her birthday, and I'm a little bit annoyed I didn't buy one for myself for my birthday, but I got this one instead because it was a lot cheaper.
Oh, you need
But
to you need
it
to
is
just push it
absolutely
out when you
gorgeous.
go to Monza.
Yeah,
Treat yourself. You've got to because
yeah,
it's just so pretty.
It's
I
this.
feel it coming.
I really like the split collar, even though
Yeah,
it's not a collar. The
yeah.
red and white. They just look so
Oh,
clean.
I'm
Yeah,
getting the white one because
yeah,
I got the
it's
red one. I'm getting
complete
the
the
white
set.
one. The
Yeah,
hats are
it's
nice. The
they're
hoodie's nice. I think.
if only their car could perform like their merchant design
oh,
teams this year.
yeah.
And have you
Don't want it
just
again.
before we move on? I know it's not what we're supposed to be talking about, but have you seen the Monza Special Edition? They're going blue.
Oh, are they?
Yes,
Ooh.
they
Like
haven't
a bit
launched it.
like
There's a leak.
it's a
It's
bit like is it a bit like Miami they did? Was it last year? They went those sort of blue overalls. Is it that sort of blue?
it's a
No.
darker blue.
Oof.
It's
Do you think
almost navy-esque.
do you think they'll finally bite the bullet and bring back the blue livery from? Did they had a blue in like the 60s once or something?
They had one in
Well,
the
Just do it
They
once
had one in the
they
in the
50s. They
50s.
teased
had
Yeah.
green.
Yeah.
they teased the yellow and then they just put Ferrari in yellow on the
Yellow.
spoiler. It was just
Yeah.
like that's so disappointing.
And
Like
they
Yeah,
teased the burgundy and they did the burgundy once and then had
the
it like at
burgundy
the
was all right actually.
burgundy was
I didn't mind the
gorgeous.
burgundy.
The it was the 1,000 race burgundy in
Yeah,
Mugello, wasn't it?
900 or something. Yeah.
but
Yeah, it was
the thing
beautiful.
is, Ferrari people are like, oh, they need to be red. No, they don't.
No, of course they don't.
Enzo Ferrari went in a huff with
The
somebody,
silver
and
arrows have
Yeah.
been black for 5 years.
yeah.
And
Nothing needs to be anything.
look at that badge. Most of it's yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, Enzo Ferrari went in a huff and decided for a race or two, it must have been like 51, 52. I can't remember the exact day. And he drove them in green because he went in a huff. So he's like, I'm not racing them in red then. You're getting green cars. Like, it's just a colour.
It's
Come
pretty Enzo,
on.
all right.
Yeah, and it's always brilliant. It's amazing. See the things that man did back in the 50s, great.
What I will say
But
about
anyway,
Ferrari is what's keeping them second in the championship this year, if not in our rankings, is actually Lewis Hamilton. I'm not going to say the second driver, but it is Lewis Hamilton. I know he's been beating himself up left, right, and center this year, but he's only finished out of the points twice, and one of those was a disqualification, which just doesn't count really, because it wasn't his fault. He finished in the points of that race. He's only really finished outside the points once, and his worst finish all year was 10th in Australia, other than that disqualification. Um, Eighth in Miami, seventh in Belgium. But like, okay, Charles Leclerc has had five podiums, which have been very, very good. But Hamilton, if you consider him the second car in terms of second in the standings at least, is outperforming Kimi Antonelli. Is that a high bar to clear? No, he's the rookie who replaced him. But that is what's keeping Ferrari ahead of Mercedes, who are arguably the second best car at the moment. And it comes back to what we said when we talk about Red Bull. You need to have both of your drivers scoring points all the damn time if you want to be successful in Formula One. It's not enough to have one,
yeah.
um, unless you're Red Bull dominating. Or actually, would they even this year? Oh yeah, McLaren would just, I think. Ferrari have 260 points. Both okay, so both McLaren drivers are could win the championship on their own this year. But again, these years are anomalous, very, very, very rare. You still need your two drivers. That brings us on then, of course, to number one in our rankings. Not surprising at all. It is McLaren. 25 points we gave them on average, completely unanimous, no questions whatsoever. They're the team of the season so far. What I would say is, despite their insane points haul of 559 points so far this year, I don't think they've been perfect. I think both drivers have had their gaffes. Oscar slid off in Australia. I don't think that's a gaff. That was just a bit unfortunate. But he absolutely fecked up in Britain, and that was completely his fault. Both incidences, the safety car thing, and then scooting wide when he was pushing too hard at the end. Lando Norris, his performances have been a little bit worse. Obviously, Canada is just that standout moment where he just went the wrong way, completely went to the wrong side of the track. There was nothing malicious in it. He wasn't Hamiltoning Rosberg into the barriers in Spain. It was nothing like that, or buttoning Hamilton into the barriers in Canada. It wasn't like either of them. But I think his performance has just been a little bit lower down overall. Oscar's a bit of a robot, but I don't think the team have been perfect, except for the fact that they're running away with it. James, anything to say against McLaren this year? It's probably the best way to put it.
No, I don't think you can. I don't think there's any points against. I think you just got to appreciate what they're doing. This year, the turnaround. I think this must be, within a regulation, not not over regulations, but within a regulation period. This must be the greatest rise of a Formula One team. I think about Mercedes did, from 2012, for example, to 2014, but that was over. They used a rule change to dominate. While McLaren have become dominant within a rule period, which is fantastic. But I think what was it? Did they win? Did they get 4 1-2s in a row before the Christmas break, which was the last time they did that was 1988. We know how that season went with Senna and Prost became, the most successful season of all time, and that's what this team is on that level at the moment. They are. This car could go down as the greatest McLaren of all time, which is saying something. If they win all the rest of the races, they've won. What was that? 23 at 21 out of 24 races. I know, obviously, Red Bull annoyingly will still have that record, but I think this could go. This is now, if they continue this stretch, which I don't see them not doing. This would be the top one or two McLarens of all time against the MP44, which is historic. So you just got to appreciate what they're doing, revel in it if you're a McLaren fan, and annoyingly respect it if you're not, because they are. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I think the two drivers have been nice, closely matched. And I will get to the driver rankings in a bit, so I won't say too much about that. But that's big. That's made the championship. We want it, if it's going to be a dominant car, you want the two drivers to be close. It's going to be a fantastic run in. They could still get 1,000 points, which feels absolutely crazy. Which I know you two were saying was happening. I definitely poo-pooed that earlier, but now I'm looking at it thinking it could very much happen. So, which would be insane. So, He's got to appreciate them, and they are the undisputed number one. I think you can't argue against it, can you?
No, yeah, definitely can. Yeah, four 1-2 finishes to close off the first half of the year. Lando won Austria, Britain, and Hungary, and Oscar won Belgium. So momentum wise, we'll get into them. Momentum is with Lando in that sense. That's a great run going into this, going into the halfway point, especially after the world. Like the result came three wins in four races, and a second place after smashing into the back of his teammate in Canada. That's a big recovery. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But yeah, I didn't do the calculation. I won't claim it, but someone did the calculation for me of how they can hit 1,000 points and if they perfect the season, which basically means 1-2 and everything and the sprint, but there's an allowance for them to finish like third or fourth here or there kind of thing. They could the max amount of points they could finish with post Hungary is like 1,063 or something like that, something ridiculous. So not even just beating the 1,000 point barrier, they could absolutely smash it by nearly
Where did
three race victories.
the Red Bull never got to 1,000 though,
No,
right?
the biggest points record ever was 836. I think it was Red Bull a few years ago, or
Yeah, blimey.
Mercedes a few years ago.
Because surely Red Bull in 2023, when obviously Verstappen won pretty much every single race apart from Perez winning, what was it, two, and then Sainz winning one. I know Perez had started going off, but that seems like I'm surprised they'd be that far off if this McLaren, because this McLaren doesn't feel, it feels dominant, but I don't know if it feels as dominant. I think just Verstappen just made it look simple, but that's surprising actually. But I believe it. It's just, I thought they'd be in the 900 or something.
No,
860 for Red Bull in
Yeah, fair.
2023. Mercedes was the second highest, 765 in 2016, which was their 1-2 championship run with
Mm,
Rosberg and Hamilton, where the two of them were fighting right to the end.
a few
Mercedes
less
was,
races, I guess.
yeah. So
Three less races,
currently,
maybe.
a live result as of after Hungary, McLaren currently sit 18th on the number of points scored in here, and there's 10 races to go. 18th on
But
559 points, so they're 301 points behind the record.
yeah, you expect them to get that, wouldn't you?
You'd expect them to get that, so they need to average what
31.
31 points 31 points a race. They've
That's still like a third and a fourth every single race, essentially, isn't it? Really?
pretty much,
Yeah,
but
maybe a
they
bit more.
have they've averaged 39.9 points in the first 14 races of the
Yeah,
season,
impressive.
and they've made a lot of errors, and they've
Mm.
coughed up three race victories. Um, you'd be sooner hard pressed to expect that they cough up any more race victories between now and the end of the season. Coops, what are your thoughts on McLaren's season, and can they break that 1,000 points?
well, yeah, because this is the thing about Formula One. You need two consistent drivers.
Yep. Said it
When
like four times
Mercedes
now.
were
Yep. So important.
Mercedes were doing their thing, it was Hamilton. We all know about Red Bull, and I think in 2023 did they not lose the constructors? Or did Verstappen win the constructors in 2023?
Uh,
Verstappen won the constructors in
Verstappen
23. It
won
was
the
24.
constructors.
Yeah.
It was 24 that they did it, and
24. So last year, Max won the drivers and McLaren won the constructors.
was it close for 23? I can't remember. I think it was starting to get a bit touchy. If memory serves me, I might be getting confused. Uh,
No, I
I
think
think it
Verstappen
was
won that championship
ran
without
away with it.
even
Yeah.
without Perez, he would have won the constructors. It was something
Yeah.
crazy like that. Yeah.
I'll tell you
uh,
right now. So Max Verstappen finished the season on 575 points. Mercedes finished second on 409.
well,
Not
okay, it
even.
wasn't even close. Oh, whoops. So yeah, this is the thing. Like, I mean, Formula One is a very unique sport in that it has a constructors' championship, a team championship, and then an individual drivers' championship. The team wants the constructors, the drivers want the drivers. So there's always that balance. Uh, but yeah, I think no, I think McLaren, they have everything in the right place to do it.
Hmm.
The biggest thing we have is the variables like weather, like a driver, because we've got to remember that it's still a very human sport. So there's going to be something.
Hmm.
It's not going to be perfect. And at some point during this season, these two guys that's sitting behind you there, Sean, are going to have another coming together when it gets to the
No
wire
doubt.
and there's going to have to be a conversation at some point with McLaren about who's getting what. I think the worst case scenario for Zach Brown and Andrea Stella is if they're at a point where either one of them can win the championship all the way through the season. Well, there's not an opportunity to say that you're the driver, you're going to be the wingman. Because see if they stay within 5, even 10 points of each other, McLaren can't do anything. They can't say, right, it's you, or it's you, or it's you. It's going to be a 1 and 2. They have to just say, right, crack on.
They
Um,
even sort of happened in now. Okay, it was Sky F1 just trying to drum up a little bit of controversy in what was otherwise a bit of a dull race, unless you were paying attention to the front two, which I was. But that part was exciting. I think Crofty said,
mhm.
"Is there any chance they tell Lando to move out of the way because they looked him into that position with the strategy again?" And I'm thinking to myself, one, okay, Crofty, he's just trying to drum up a bit of excitement, but two, that's the stupidest comment he's made all season because no, there's not a snowball's chance in hell because it wasn't the better strategy. They didn't undercut him. Lando didn't undercut Oscar with that one stop like he did last year, which was a bit unfair. And even if he had, Lando would have suddenly gone completely deaf if they'd have told him to move out of the way this year when they are properly, both of them, fighting for the championship against each other. And last year it was like, oh, he's miles off Max. So if he's going to win it, it'll be later in the year kind of thing. This doesn't really matter. What's 7 points in the end? Didn't really make any difference. This year, there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that Lando was going to get out of the way, and that will happen for the rest of the year. There won't be you're number one, you're the wingman. It's right, whoever gets into turn number one first, just don't fucking hit each other.
Yep.
It's the way it'll have to be. That's the papaya
Do
rules.
do what you need to do. Don't hit each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is how it should be. Which is how for the most part, that's how Mercedes went racing. There was a couple of times where Rosberg and Hamilton Rosberg was told to get out of the way a couple of times, and he did, and then Lewis was told to get out of the way, and he went deaf. And after that, Nico's like, well, "Feck you, then I'm never moving out of the way ever again," and he won the championship. Um,
And then you
and
had the infamous Valtteri exchange.
you had the Valtteri exchange, but you had the different scenario then of, Lewis never really saw Valtteri as a threat to the championship.
Nope.
So when Valtteri was asked to move out of the way in Hungary and he did so, Lewis gave the position back because he knew, I'm not fighting him, am I? And I'm
Yeah.
still ahead of Seb. That's all that matters. So it's
It's a
different.
good PR thing for him. He knew that that was a good
100%.
game. And
People
it was
people still talk about that today. Oh, Lewis Hamilton's a great team player. It's like, eh, Jenson Button might disagree with that. Fernando Alonso
Hmm.
would almost certainly disagree with that. I don't think Heikki
George
Kovalainen
Russell
even
played
if
the game at Williams. Do
yeah,
you
he
remember when
did.
he came out and said, "Ruin my race if it helps the
Sure
other guy"?
have.
He's never seen that in a Mercedes. Uh, so yeah, some of them know how to play the game better than others.
They certainly do. Well, there you go. That is our ranking of the Formula One teams for the first half of 2025. Again, this whole list will be up on our website, everythingf1.com, very, very soon. So you can check that out. We'll have a little bit more, go into a little bit more detail on each team and why we've ranked them in that position. But again, this is an average score from the whole Everything F1 team giving their rankings, and we collate it together. If you're watching on YouTube, firstly, thank you. Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification. We'll be back in a couple of days with our driver rankings. The point system is a little bit different for that because there's more of them. There's 20 to rank and doing. So we'll have that up
Hmm.
in a couple of days. So make sure you hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you know when that comes up. Do let us know in the comments how would you rank them? What is your first to 10 on the teams for this season. And thank you very, very much for tuning in. We'll be back in a couple of days. Do check us out on everythingf1.com and check out theraceworks.com for all of your F1 and motorsport merch. Use code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. We'll be back soon. Thank you.